So, it's finally happened. After a lot of waiting, I've got my hands on a Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. So, this is something I've been looking forward to for a while. Actually, the first bike I ever reviewed on my YouTube channel was the Enfield Bullet 500. And I really enjoyed it. If I had a single criticism, it might be that if you wanted to use motorways, things like that, is a little bit out of its comfort zone there. By the time you get to 65, 70 miles an hour, it's giving you ideas that it doesn't really want to go an awful lot faster. So, beautiful bike, and absolutely on roads like this, everything you'd ever need, but just lacking, for me, a tiny bit of power. Not enough to make you say I wouldn't want to buy one, but it would slightly limit you in what you're going to be doing with it. But Royal Enfield have been on a bit of a mission quietly over the last few years, and they've been out developing and purchasing companies, and they've purchased Harris. Now, Harris is a well-known frame manufacturer in the UK who really are absolute experts. I mean, they went up to and including building Grand Prix bikes, so they know what they're doing. And Harris were acquired by Royal Enfield, and the first bike with the Harris chassis was, of course, the Continental, and then also the Himalayan was also built with the Harris chassis. And that's been passed on down to this bike. This is a sign of Royal Enfield moving up market. It's twin cylinder, it's more powerful, it's got a top speed just over 100 miles an hour, and at 47 brake horsepower it is also very A2 learner friendly. So again, it begs the question, is an A2 friendly bike enough for an experienced rider? Well, the impressions on the road frankly are really good. This feels smooth. The engine's an absolute peach. It's really nice. It feels almost more like a V-twin than a parallel twin. There's almost no vibration through from it. It pulls from 3,000, we're at 3,000 now, and the response is absolutely instantaneous. There's no flat spots, there's no vibes, it just pulls, but it's not going to get out of hand. So the brakes are smooth and progressive, and they're twin-pot sliding calipers. There is ABS, and this bike in particular is actually fitted with optional S&S exhausts, which do give it a nice little extra burble. That's a dealer fit option. So what's it actually like? Well, you've got to remember, this bike is really aimed at the heart of the Triumph Bonneville. It is after that same marketplace. It's a little less powerful than the Bonneville because it's a little bit smaller, but then the kicker comes when you compare the prices. Now, a new Triumph Bonneville, even the most basic variant now, will set you back about £9,000. Now, this looks every inch comparable. A couple of the details are maybe not quite as good, but it's splitting hairs, in all honesty it really is. But it looks really good. It's comfortable, it's got a lovely riding position, the handling is smooth and predictable, the tyres feel nice, the braking is smooth and predictable, and there is a wealth of options to this bike. So the real kicker, why would you go with this over the Triumph? So you've got the Triumph 9,000 quid in your pocket. You can walk out to dealers with significant change from £6,000 for this bike. Basic price starts at 5,699 on the road. This is the optional chrome version, that's the 6,100. But this is really just in a different league and price, and it's 65% the price for 95% the bike. This is just coping brilliant. I mean, we're up at the legal limit on these country roads, and this bike is coping absolutely wonderfully, and there's loads to go yet. Sustained 80 mile an hour cruising is not a problem on this bike. So this isn't a Royal Enfield you can just use chugging down a little country lane. You can go to the coast for a day. Hell, if you really want to, load it up with luggage and take it over to France, take it over into Europe. You can do a long journey. So this, I can't see a reason why if you're paying with your own money in the real world, this is not a bike you'd go for. It looks great, it feels really nice, and everything does what it's supposed to do. But that price tag is just off the chart. I mean, if this was at 7,000 quid, it wouldn't be an absolute bargain, but you know what? You wouldn't feel cheated. For £5,699, I'm absolutely staggered. It feels like it's going to last, comfortable, the reliability ratings have shown them to be very good, and these are so good that some of the people that have reviewed these bikes have simply turned around and bought them. I mean, there's a couple of famous YouTubers that reviewed them and said, no, I'm having it, I don't want to give it back. So one to watch for is the Missenden Flyer. He's got a very good review on his channel, and he's a bit bigger than me size wise, and it fits in like a glove. Now I'm 5'7", I weigh 78 kilos, and I'm not straining to reach anything. I've got a great view ahead, everything's comfortable. So this is going to fit a wide range of people. I would be a little bit careful if I was much shorter, because it's not the lowest seat in the world. But actually, do you know what? The bowl for short people is catered for quite well, whereas taller riders do suffer a little bit. So actually it's no bad thing, but it's definitely comparable to a Bonneville. I can't help feeling that if companies like Norton and Triumph, or in particular Norton, had have been just a little bit more grounded with their Commando, they might have sold more bikes, though whether or not that company would actually been able to deliver is a different matter. But I think for this style of bike, I just can't see any reason why you wouldn't just absolutely just run away, because the saving, unless you are so free with the money that you don't need to give it a second thought, the saving in cost is just enormous. And this thing sounds lovely with the optional pipes. So even if you were looking at a second-hand Bonneville, why go with a second-hand one? We can have a brand new one with a manufacturer's warranty, spec the chrome tank, which looks absolutely gorgeous, spec yourself the S&S pipes, and go for the new Royal Enfield. I mean, this is absolutely lovely. I really can't fault it. So looking round, we've definitely decided I like it. That's no doubt about that one. So the next question that comes up, what don't I like? Well, I'm really struggling to find anything. There's a couple of bits of casting that aren't quite as neat as they could potentially be. The indicators have a bit of a plasticky stem. That's pretty indisputable. Although they do still look nice and shiny and chromy. But it's £5,600. Just every criticism that I can lay at this bike falls apart with it being £5,600. And all of a sudden reality bumps back in and says, yeah, particularly if you could buy this without financing. If the difference was then you had to finance a Triumph, no-brainer, just a no-brainer. But who's this bike for? Is this a rock and roller's 1960s dream? Is it an A2 rider's confidence-inspiring easy rider? Is it something for everyone? Yeah, I think actually I'll put it as that. It's something for everyone. This is just an easy to use motorbike. It's a bike really originating from a time before bike genres existed. So back when these were originally designed in the early 1960s, where the original concept came from, there wasn't a sports bike and a this bike and a that bike. You walked into a bike shop and you bought a motorcycle, and this is what they were like. This is like having an old bike, except it's fuel injected, got anti-lock brakes, and it all works really well. So this is just a motorcycle. So if you want to ride a motorcycle, get on it and ride it. If you've got 9 points in your license, sell your R1 and buy one of these. It will be the thing that keeps your license alive. If you've got an adventure bike but you notice you never ever 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 take it off-road and you're thinking it's a bit excessive for what you do, get one of these. It's got a not dissimilar riding position, but it's not intended to look like something it's not. It's nice and narrow filtering. You could use it every day, and this would be perfect for people that have to ride, say, from Buckinghamshire into London without any problem at all. And yet it's got to be narrow enough to filter when you get there. It's not lacking at all on these country roads. The sliding caliper is smooth and responsive. And I'm just going to enjoy this ride because this thing is absolutely lovely. All the controls are light, everything works as you'd expect it to. If I have a tiny gripe, I'm finding the clutch cover on the right hand side just slightly interferes with my foot when I hit the brake, but that's just getting used to the bike. It's not enough to call it a fault, it's just that it's just about there. That's about it. A couple of people have picked up that the mudguards are plastic, not metal, and the metal on the drive. Well, is that a problem? They look lovely, they don't look like plastic, and they're not going to rust, and they're a bit lighter, so I don't see that as a problem. If you sit there tapping away at them, yes, you're going to tell they're plastic and not metal, but Be honest, how many times if you've owned a motorcycle have you sat there tapping the mudguards? If you spend a lot of time doing that, then that might be a totally different sort of scenario, but it's not a problem. Mirrors remain nice and free, no vibration. The bars don't tingle, the engine's smooth, the gear change is super light. And this has got everything I would want out of a motorcycle. Nice and responsive, just flip past the cyclist without a problem. I don't have to rev it, you know, we're doing 4,000 to 5,000 revs a lot of the time, and it's pulling absolutely lovely. One of the other factors that have really pushed me to this from a fairly new-ish second-hand bike is that being the latest model, you know it's going to deal with modern fuels without a problem. It's designed to run on fuels with ethanol in them. It's designed to be working well with everything you're going to get out the pump in the next decade. So you don't have to sit there going, oh, can I use E10, can I use this, can I use that? Not going to be a problem because it's a modern bike designed to run on modern fuel. You can put it away in winter, connect it to your trickle charger in September, come March, hit the button, it's going to fire right up, guaranteed, no problem at all. So you're going to get your peace of mind. And I think this really is a bike I could personally be very happy owning. Forward enough power. You sat upright, so you're a bit of a parachute, so you don't want loads and loads of grunt because you're going to get blown off the back of it. So 120 horsepower in a bike like this is a bit pointless. And the 50-ish horsepower we're putting down here now is more than enough. So yeah, another thumbs up for Royal Enfield. So there you go. If you like these videos, hit the like and subscribe button. I'm going to leave you here with a few little stills of the bike so you can have a look at the various angles of it. And yeah, do hit the comments, do give us a like and a thumbs up. We'll see you in a future video. And once again, just thanks to CooperB Motorcycles for use of their demonstrator. As always, they're so helpful and supportive of the channel. Really appreciate this, guys. Thank you very much.